Hello, this is Sandra again. This is a tutorial on Cricket. This is Cricket completed. You can find her at iliella.com. They're under the butterfly charm blocks. They are a free pattern. You can go in and download and print as many copies as you want. They're for your own personal use. But this is Cricket. I am going to be working on part of it. I have half of it ready done. So we will start with part B. Part B is this one right here. So you will start by finding your body color. There's only one color on this one. Make sure that it covers. And then you're going to fold on the line, because we want to trim this 1/4 of an inch. And then the next color, 2, is my background color. I have my background colors all here. Various shapes and sizes. And this one is the trickier part of all of them. And what I find best is put your fabric face down, because I'm going to just sit this pattern on here. Then I fold this way, and then I will trim up along the fold 1/4 of an inch. So you can see I only need this much of this fabric. So I'm going to go ahead and trim that much of this fabric. And you can use a ruler if you want, or you can just run a cutter right up it. So the fabric is still face down. This piece I just put in the middle of it because I want plenty. Fold that line. Put the ruler or your add 1/4 ruler, and you will trim that line right there. Of course, the pressure at the angle I wasn't quite enough. That is no longer needed. So now, when you go to place this, because we place right sides together, you just take this piece, put it on top with the right side down, and if I pretend like I'm that seam, it goes right up over and covers every place. So now I have to go sew this on that little line. I'm going to start at the dotted line, go 2 beyond with a reduced stitch of 1.5. 1.5, and start at the dotted line. I wish I could keep showing both, but you guys would get so sick of watching the camera move. But I think showing the detail where I sew, you will get the gist of it. So I sewed from the dotted line out 3 beyond. So remove the pin, and then I turn it over. I put the paper face down, find where I sewed, and I finger press. And then you hold that in position, flip it back over. Now I'm not going to trim out here. I'm going to fold on this long line between 2 and 3. And you release these stitches right here just a little bit. you just put a little hole in your paper. Doesn't matter. We're going to throw the paper out when it's done. So I pressed that. Now I'm going to take beyond that paper. You can leave the paper in or you can take it out. But now I'm going to trim my 1/4 inch away from that one. Discard the little pieces left because I had little to no waste. Now I need to cover this big piece, so I'm going to use one of the bigger pieces. Of course, I reach for one and I get 2. So again, right side's up this time. I'm going to fold this down, position this, and when I raise this up, I can see that this looks like more than enough to cover all of this. So that's where I'm going to put back up, put just 1 pin in, just so it doesn't move. And I'm going to go sew from dotted line to dotted line. Pins poke you. So I'll sew that. And remove from the machine. Remove the pin. Flip face of the pattern down. You can see where you sewed. And you're going to finger press. And then you can press, but finger pressing is all I do for now. Get my iron turned on. Now we're going to be doing some trimming. So hold this wing over here down, flip it back over, make sure it's all nice and flat. Now you have to trim around all these lines. Well, what I try to do is figure out where I could save the most fabric. I don't want a great big piece that goes clear up here. I don't want that cut. I don't want, really, that cut would be the best cut. Or you can cut straight across here. And then there's other times that you can use these little pieces. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go straight across and cut. You can look ahead in your pattern and you can kind of see where you're going to go. So there's that piece off. Trim on this line. I'm going to keep that one for right now. The rest gets discarded. Going to keep this dotted line. Going to keep this one for now. Discard. Now I'm going to go ahead and trim down this one. I use the ruler on the longest point. These little ones right here, I just take the cutter, snip, and so those now become trash. So now we have A that we're going to make. And A will look like C does, it's just in reverse. So I need the colors. And somebody didn't save out her colors. I thought I was planned, but even the best plan doesn't work. If you know how that goes. We think we have it all, and then it's like, oh no. And I did a dark purple, and then a medium. It's like, they don't all have to be the same. Okay, here's the dark purple. And it's only going to cover up number 2. So the same thing here. You pick your body color for 1. And you make sure it's enough to go 1/4 inch above your fold. So you'll fold on that line between 1 and 2. Make sure it's 1/4 inch up there. Then you get your next color. See, it goes 1/4 inch on each side. So it'll work. And it's a batik, so there's no right or wrong. So you just see where it's number 2's positioned. Lay this piece on there. Fold that up. And now I'm going to sew across this 2 stitches before the line, and then 2 stitches beyond. Because you want it to grab hold. You don't want your butterfly to fall apart. So I'm going to 2 stitches beyond. Remove it. Trim your strings. It's like, there's a little repetitious stuff, but now I do the same thing. Flip it over. Take your piece, finger press up. Don't do anything with it, just leave it there. Hold it flat, turn it back over. Now you want to go between line 2 and 3. And if you don't want that piece to move, you can pin it over here. But you got to be out of the way of your line. So there isn't a whole lot of area that you can pin it. So I'll pin it right there. And then that line between 2 and 3 is where you're going to. And that releases off all on its own. So then I trim that 1/4 inch. And those are too tiny to do anything with. So we'll flip that back over. And we're looking to see what size piece we need here. And see, this piece goes out beyond the dotted line, clear over here. So this piece is more than enough. So I'm going to fold the paper back, sit that where you can see where your dotted line is. Just make sure that's there, lined up. Flip that back up. Move your pin to where you grab all the fabrics, or you can just hold it with your fingers. Now I'm going to go sew from the dotted line all the way through to the 2 stitches beyond. You should still be at your shorter stitch length. Mine is 1.5. 1.8, 1.5. Some people do 1.2. So just trim the strings. Take the pin out. Again, face down with the paper. You can see where you sewed. You will finger press that piece up and over. While you're holding that big piece that doesn't move, put it back over here. And now our next line is over here. But I need this. So you can take and press along this number 8 line, just for this trimming of this piece. You press at the 8 line and you trim off your excess, so you're not dealing with such a big piece. You won't be sewing on that line because we are going to sew on the cutting on the line between 3 and 4. This one right here. So again, take release your stitches, press on that line just as you can see on that 3 to 4 line, and then I'm going to trim that 1/4 inch of excess off. And you probably see I have my ruler backwards. It depends on how I pick it up. It's not like it's a big ruler, a big space. So now I need the piece that's wide enough. So we'll see. This one here just barely makes it, because you have to go from this dotted line 1/4 inch up. Just barely makes it. So I'm not going to chance it. So the same strip, I'm going to just turn it this way. And then I just leave it sit right there. Take my piece, fold the paper back, and I can see my line is right there. So basically I need it to cover from almost that edge of the paper all the way out. So then I sit it on there. It goes from, there's the edge of mine. I left a little extra. So you fold it back, put your pin in it to hold everything. Pick it up. You'll start 2 stitches before, sew all the way down to the dotted line. It's just to make sure you're nice and secure. It's a repeat, repeat, repeat. Foundation paper piecing, to me, is fun and relaxing. You get very sharp, crisp points on your items. And the only thing I find the most is this fabric can, when you're picking it up and if it's not pressed well, it can flop. And if it doesn't flop back in the same position, then you can get all sorts of wrinkles back there. Okay, so I just got done sewing this line along between the 1, 2, and 3 all touch line 4. So the line right there that joins the last numbers. So put the paper that way, face that down. See where your stitches are. Go finger press. And that's a batik. Batiks love staying firmly there. So now I need to trim between the 4 and the 5. But I have this excess. So I'm just going to trim along that dotted line. So in order to do that, I will turn it and just trim off some of the excess. Because I am done with the colors now. That was all the wing parts. All the shaded colors, 1, 2, 3, 4, are now all covered. So I need to go with the background, number 5. And this is where those smaller pieces that I took off earlier will work. Because see, this one goes, make sure right side up. This one goes 1/4 inch beyond both. And then if you was to hold a pin, and then it's called auditioning on the right side, it covers all of that up. So that should work perfectly fine for that little number 5. So some of the pieces are fine. So to start, you take that line 5, press your paper back, trim your 1/4 inch, and if you're a first time doer, As one of our friends says, hunka fabric. She'd rather use a hunka fabric than a tiny piece like I do. But I've had a little more experience, so now I have to make sure there's the 1/4 inch, there's the 1/4 inch to piece this piece up there correctly. Lay this back, and now I'm going to go sew on the line 5. And it's like a fellow sewer always says she uses a hunka fabric. So everything depends on what you want to do. It's like I'm comfortable with the smaller pieces. Okay, again, face side down, finger pressed up. You can look at the light, and you can see my fabric goes all the way over all the sides. So that was a big enough piece for me. And you'll get these little strings that you gotta trim. I thought I trimmed it, but the curly thing just bounced back up. So now, holding that one in position, turn it over. You can put a pin between out here by the 8 over, because the next line is right here that I gotta fold. So that pin isn't in my way, but it's not letting this piece drop back down. That's what happens on a lot of times. That piece, if you don't pin it, will flop back down, and you go in and you trim this edge and whatnot, and then where'd the piece go? So this is one time, if you're a beginner, I recommend put a pin. It's not going to hurt anything. Now I'm going to fold on line 6 and 7. I didn't release the little stitch. Release that stitch. Fold on line 6. My pin's in the way, but it's still enough. That paper can rip a little. Then you trim your 1/4 inch. I can't trim all the way because the pin's there. I'm going to go ahead and pull the pin out. Trim my 1/4 inch. Open it back up. I just need a little piece. But it's like that one there. It's like, let's see, this one might fit. It goes a 1/4 inch below it. It goes above it. So I'm going to audition it back here. So I know I need beyond this dotted line down here and up to this one. And you can put a pin. I call it the sewing pin. Sewing with a pin. So I can go start at the point of 6 down here and just pin up. Then I can take and pick this up and over, and I can look in the light, and it goes way out here, clear over in the light. You can see it covers all of it. So I'm going to go ahead and sew that little piece. I'm going to start clear up here, sew down, and 2 stitches beyond. It's right sides are together, and if you're using a batik or a solid, it's hard to say what you sewed and where, because you can't tell right side from wrong side. There is a way. If you really look at the fabric, they say there is a way. On batiks and the solid cottons, I don't worry. There's not that much difference. And nobody it's going to get the magnifying glass out and search it. So then, same thing, just finger press this up, hold the piece, face back up, and then I'm going to just trim the dotted lines for now. Off screen, can't see it. So now we are going to do the pressing on this line between 6 and 7. Release the bottom down there. I said the paper's all going to the trash. So it's like those little perforated holes are going to just disappear. Trim off your 1/4 inch. I used up all my scraps from the previous, so now I got to start with a bigger piece again. So, right side's up, the folded piece, the right sides are here, put right sides together, and it's beyond the dotted lines that way, more than enough over here. So now I'm going to sew that line between 6 and 7. The material are right sides facing each other. I'm going to start at the dotted line, and I'm going to sew completely off to the other dotted line. It's just securing the fabric very well. So trim these little strings. I always miss my garbage can. So now we will face down, finger press where we just sewed, flip it over, making sure the fabric stays completely flat. And now I'm going to trim straight up along this dotted line, because this side of the butterfly wing is done. Take the little dog ear off. Set that to the side. Trim this one. And we're going to do number 8 and 9 next. Okay, it's like, so now we're going to sew, because we just finished 7. So now we're going to find where line 8 is, and it's next to 3 and 5. So we need that number 8 line. We release the stitches, fold on that line at 8, trim the 1/4 inch, now we just need a little one, but I don't have a little piece, so I'm going to use the big one again. Right side's up, and fold over the line 8. You can see where your point is, so I need 1/4 inch here, and I can go clear up there and off the board. So there's more than enough on this little end, and when you raise this up, you can just about picture how it comes back down. So now I'm going to sew along that 8 line. 2 stitches before, out in the 9, and then I'm going to go all the way off. It's always best to remind yourself 2 before, and you go clear out to the dotted line, which is your 1/4 inch out. That's your seam allowance when you join the other pieces together. We're not quite ready to join the pieces together yet. Trying to watch my time here. So I just sewed the number 8 line, face down where you just sewed, finger press up, holding the pieces firmly, flip over, reposition, where you can now trim off any strings that are in your way. And we are going to fold on the big long 9 side. So we're going to release the stitch, release the stitch, and then trim the 1/4 inch. I'll pull it down this way just a little bit so I don't cut into the pattern above. Again, this is Cricket from lilyella.com. It is a free pattern for all of us to use. There are 3 butterflies: Cricket, Pepper, and Gidget. And now I'm going to trim off this little tip right here. It's just in the way. So this piece is more than enough. So right side's up. Fold this down. It's more than enough. Put it on there and face it back. It doesn't tell me how much time I'm using. Oh, I've had 31 minutes. So start at the dotted line out before 9, and you're going to sew all the way across that line number 9. Out to the dotted line, trim your string. And then on this one I'm going to show you, you can go back if your fabric goes over a little. You can always go back and check to see if you have to trim anything. And if you need to trim, you trim. But as long as you have at least 1/8 of an inch beyond that, it is fine, because it's multiple sews. It should be very well reinforced. So open pattern back up, put pattern face side down. This is the seam I just sewed. Finger press the material up, holding it in position. You can now trim all of the spots around. So I'm going to trim this straight line first. And then I'm going to try and save this one for if I can use it in another part, because I work with little pieces, but as Terry says, hunka fabric. Some people use the hunka fabrics, and I try to waste as little as possible. My scraps go in to make dog beds. And even if I get a little sliver of paper, it isn't going to hurt the dog bed any, because it's just a biodegradable thing. So it is all trimmed. And then there is A. There is the B we just completed. And it's like, and then here's C that I had previously done. So we're ready to sew the pieces together. So to sew the first half of the butterfly together, press well all your pieces. That way you don't get these little flappers that come up. So I'm going to press all these pieces. And if you have to, you can use a little steam. I never have water in my irons. I've had too many irons quit working, shooting hot, rusty looking water all over my white fabric. So I do not use steam anymore. I have a little spritzer bottle of water available if I need it. So we're going to reposition these again. There's A, B, C. You don't have to flip them over and print them in reverse or anything like that. It is totally up to you. Once you get used to it, you just know that when it's flipped over, it's in reverse. And I'll show you that. A, B, C. So we are now going to take our pin, put it in the point of 1, B, put it out here in the point. And then we're going to put it like this. Now we're going to take A1, the corner, and we're going to put that on the pin. I slide them together like like you just pierced your ear. If you rotate it this way, your points don't line up, because this along line 3 needs to be over there. And then see here, they go up and they match here. So you hold this firmly, because you want these two points to match, the body to the wing. So I will start sewing out here off the material, just come down. When I get here, then I will remove this pin and then finish sewing completely down and off the material. On my previous video, I kept moving the camera back and forth. I will make another butterfly after I get my camera stand to see if that helps any. I'm not going to go all techie because it's a big investment to keep getting cameras, lenses, digital moves. I just can't afford techie. But I'm doing enough. Okay, I've sewed from that off down to here off. Press it open. Flip it over. Press it back the other way. Back this way. Now remove these papers. Just on the outside seam part. You can remove the paper on this side. Turn it over and remove the long skinny paper off of B. It just makes it easier, more pliable. And then when I press these, I press them away from the B. So I'm going to go press that real fast, because it just gives you less bulk at the point of B, that B1. Because now we take the pin that I keep misplaced. You put the pin back in the point of B1, right there at the point of the shadowed. And then you're going to do the same thing. You're going to take C1, the point clear out there, and you will join it. Put it all the way up on there. Again, if you swivel this way, the C, it looks like it fits, but that isn't where it goes. You need to be along this line. Has to be along this line. Even though it fits that direction, if you swivel this back out this way, it fits just as well, even better yet. Because you want the wing to be over here, not the wing to be here. Because you don't want it to look like this. The body part needs to be between these two wings. So I'm going to swivel it back over here. Same thing as before. Keep the pin in it. And I'm going to start sewing up here off, down. When I get closer, I'll take the pin out. Be right back from the sewing machine. Wish I had pause and delay and all that in my camera, but I don't. You get background noises, you get people surprising me. I have my phone on mute, so I can't get a ringtone. You might hear it vibrate across the table. But there that line is now. You open it up, you got a wing on each side of the body. So again, you're going to press this paper back and forth. Because you want, it just helps on the perforated part. Because when, see how it's releasing by wiggling it. So take your paper, remove it. It practically wants to jump off of there. So this piece is now, when you open it up, see all the butterfly wings? Now you will press that open, and you got the first half of Cricket. You got A, B, and C assembled. I'm pressing it. So there is those parts. These are just like up here. How different they look. So now we are going to do the other parts. And I've already assembled. E is just like B. And then I assembled the F, 1 and 2. So now I am going to do D, 1 and 2, which is this part here. This part of the butterfly. I'm trying to save you time on how long I have to show you. So I have that part done, waiting. So we need D2 and D1. And they only have one color on each. So this is, I'm using the wing color. And the bottom of the wing, as you can see from here, is a different color. So I'm using the dark purple for the bottom part of the wing. So we just need background color. These two are very simple. It's just it's two pieces. So on D1, you pin your piece, fold it line 2, trim your 1/4 inch. Oh, sorry for hitting the tin can. I hit the bucket. And then we take our background material, right sides up. I only need that little tiny piece right there. I saved a little piece, but it disappeared, which is fine. I'll just cut another piece because I know I saved it, but it must have went to the trash. So you just line it up, open it up, and you can pin it, but it's a big enough piece. I'm going to go so from the dotted line, across line 2, out 2 stitches beyond. Still at the 1.5 stitch length. Okay, I've sewed from the dotted line to beyond. And now we'll release that just a little bit because I'm here. Remove my pin because I didn't have to. But I hold that piece, the number 1, put it face side down, find where you just stitched. I just lay my finger up on that stitch and I finger press out. Now I just flip the 2 pieces back over. And I don't want to trim clear down here when I do this next step. So I'm going to trim right now. I'm going to trim straight across here. I want to save a little bit of fabric. So I'm just going to trim off my excess. And a straight line is always good to match up with the next piece. So now I'm going to press on that 2 to 3 line. Lay my cardstock on there, release those stitches, fold, and trim. Always trim 1/4 inch. And as I'm teaching one gal, this is always the foot of the mountain, because when it stands up, it looks like a mountain. So I always say trim at the foot of the mountain. And this one's going to take a bigger piece, but I have the uncut fabric that I just trimmed, right side up, because right sides face each other. And I'm just going to make sure it goes from edge to edge, and I have more than enough. So place that on there, flip that back, and if you think your pieces are going to flip, just pin it so they don't. Pick it up, sew from dotted line to dotted line. You just want to make sure that the pieces do not flip back on them. You can hide the littlest piece that you need. You can even hide a whole wing. From experience teaching, I know that. So now I'm going to take that pin out, put this over, face side down. There's my line I sewed. Finger press along that. Hold the pieces. And here's, I'm going to flip it. I'm going to trim the dotted line right there, because this isn't worth saving. I don't want to cut up this way. That'd be really wasting the fabric. This way you could cut off that corner, but you might as well just go ahead and cut this point off, trim here to the dotted line. Start before it helps. Then I'm just going to trim. I'm going to trim all this off around the dotted line, because we're done with this butterfly. This part of the wing. I think I need a new blade. Trim all the dotted line. I leave the dotted line because this, I did carpentry. If you actually cut on the dotted line, on your line that you draw, you've actually made your piece too short. You always want to leave the line, because that's the length of material you needed. So from going to carpentry, so here's the piece. There's the wing, the background. So now it will sit there while we go on to do part D2. And again, same thing. Whatever color you pick for the shaded number 1, I picked the purple because that's part of my butterfly. Put your paper down. Make sure your pin goes where you can fold on the 1-2 line. Put your cardstock, whatever you're using to fold. Trim your 1/4 inch. Now I need to have this longer number 2 that comes out here. Again, you can put right side up. Make sure you have enough. this is where you'll press this back this way. You'll trim this edge. So I'm going to take that edge, I'm going to take it clear down here. And you can see that it will work because we're auditioning the fabric at the same time. So I'm just going to press this back over because I had my 1/4 inch. And it's going to work out perfect. So when you pick that back up, you turn it this way to sew it back on, because that's where it was laying. So you can do the pin audition sew, which I'm just going to put the pin right here, like it was line 2 was sewed, the line between 1 and 2. Take your fabric, just like, and see, it's more than enough to cover that. So I'm going to flip it back over, take that pin out without moving it, and I'm going to sew from there, the dotted line, out 2 stitches into number 3, towards the number 3. Trim the strings. Come over here, finish trimming the strings. Okay, paper side down, where you just sewed your stitches. And, oops, something went wrong. I put it on the wrong side. So I have to go visit Jack. And with these smaller stitches, don't ask me what I did wrong, because it's like it should have went up there. I probably just switched. Oh, I know what I did. I had the wrong side of the material up. So, lesson learned. We're all subject to mistakes. If we was all perfect, I don't know what kind of world we'd have. It's already goofed up enough. These little stitches are way smaller. I do 1 stitch at a time. There are people that sit there and just put the seam ripper in and rip down it. Every time I do that, I rip right through everything. And the line is pretty much gone because of, so it's wrong side down. Put the piece there, flip up, and it's like, I have the pin here. So it's like right there is the straight of that. So if I turn, I'm going to audition again. That's where the line is. I'm going to audition it. Hold that up. And it covers it. I just did it backward. I had my material backwards. So I'm going to leave that big tail on there. And I'm just going to show you. I'm going to sew down that line. But I got to remove my pin, because I don't want to sew on that. Because you can leave a big piece like that on the end. You don't always have to line up to the 1/4. Because you can trim after just as well as before. It's just some of the things that you learn as you go. And it's hard to keep them all in my head how to do it. So I'm not going to remove that up there yet. I'm going to audition again, finger press it. It goes out and it covers all the piece. It goes the 1/4 inch over there. So now that 2 line where it's folded, I will now trim that 1/4 inch off. That piece isn't big enough to do anything. So now this side down, finger press, right side up, and I'm going to cut this dotted line. That's where I'm going to trim to. Make sure my pin isn't in that dotted line that's still in there. Trim all the way up. Because like I said, I would like a long straight line than a short. Because you always get some of these funny points. And I'm going to leave that piece on there. Because this is where the piece drops. Because it's long and thin. I'm actually going to put a pin in there. I got a pin out here in one, but I don't need it because I need that line right there now. Release that stitches, which my paper has been removed enough. And put this on there. Press and trim. And then you need the big piece of your background. Right side up. It needs to cover from paper edge to paper edge. So you just find a spot that's big enough. Fold it open, and you're going to sew all the way down that line. Hopefully my paper stays on through this. Because where it really weakened it, taking out that little tiny line. You can, they say if you have washi tape, you can put that on there. If you're not going to delay making the butterfly or the foundation paper piece, I don't worry about it. So I remove that. Put paper side down where you just sewed. Go back and finger press. At this point, you can press it over at the iron because we're going to do the final trim of this piece, because it's a very limited amount of pieces. So I'm going to save my fabric. I'm going to just trim a straight line right off the tip of that. I'm going to, because I have enough of this to make another butterfly. So now I'll trim up to all the dotted lines. And there's going to be folds, there's going to be straight stretches, you know, flat pieces. You're just trimming all to the dotted line. You're going to have a variety of little snippets. Those are great for the dog bed. This one here, I just take, and see, I don't worry about being right on the line, because I'd rather have a little extra in the seam. So now we take our D1 and our D2. And this is the way you place them. They look awkward, but when they're sat up on each other at the 1/4 seam, this is what they'll look like. So again, take your pin, put the point in D1, but this time you're going to do this corner of your D1 here, or D2, I should say, in the corner of D2, but on D1 you're not using this corner, you're using this point right there. So that's the one that I want to put the pin through. That's my little joining point. and then it goes up and it lines up. I didn't cut my point off. And this is just hold firmly, and so from here down into the point, follow line 1 and off the piece. So I'm going to go sew that. Still in the 1.5. You're sewing over all the material, 2 sets of paper. Which, after you do a bunch of foundation paper piecing, they always recommend change your rotary blade, change your needle in your sewing machine. So now I'm going to open that up. I got a little extra white thread right there. I'll trim that off later. Press, and that's the way it should look. That little color on the end of your wing. Press back and forth. Remove that paper from the seam. Just the 1/4 inch seam part. That way you have a few places that you do recognize. Because this part of your paper is still part of the roadmap. So on this wing, when you place it against the E body part, it doesn't matter which way this seam is pressed. So now we're going to take the pin, we're going to put it out in point of E1, the farthest out point, the bottom of his top part of his body, because this is his body. And then we're going to take now the D1 part is where we put the pin to come up through. And then we want the wing part over here. So when you open it, get that in there. So when you open it, you see the wing. You'll see them open, starting to form. If you do it the other way, there's nothing. It's like, you're not going to sew it like that. There's no other way to press this against. So you can't make a mistake on putting this body part together. And it doesn't matter if this is a little bit longer than the piece, because we have a final trim of 5 inches when this is all done. So I'm just going to hold this very firmly, take the pin out, and I'm going to start sewing straight up from the line, this line right here. I'm just going to start sewing up there and sew right down and off the bottom. We took off the paper so we didn't have all that extra bulk. Sometimes you have to help by pushing your fabric. Make sure all your fabric on E is in the correct position. If you have to leave it with a pin in it, just put it where it's not going to be in the way of your seam. So I sewed down the line. Now I'm going to finger press it open, turn it over, and there's the butterfly wings. This is the bottom of the wings. So press that paper back and forth both ways. Remove that 1/4 inch paper. That seam paper is right there along your seam. Remove it off of both sides. It rips off easier if you don't have the fabric under the paper. And when I press it open, I press this as the TP is open. I'll be right back. I'm going to go press that. So I now have this piece. Clean up a little bit here. I have pins in my discard pile, which isn't good, because I was trying to save time from going to the pin cushion. So now this piece will join ABC, will now join DEF. And so, again, you go to, doesn't matter, B or E, you're going to go out to that point, put your pin through, and then you're going to take that other one, I'm B1 point, that's where I want the pin to come out on this other one, and then that's where you swivel, point, push it all the way in like a pierced steering, line your pieces up, make sure your material is up in positions. You can put a pin in it. Make sure over here all your pieces are up in the right position. And now we're going to sew all the way from off the paper. We're going to start all the way down this line, get to this point, closer to this point, pull the pin out, and then continue sewing down your seam. Leave that pin in so it doesn't move your position. It's the only way we can nest the seams. It's kind of like nesting the seam. And it's like sometimes putting all this through it is a little tougher for walking because it's walking against the paper, so it likes to slide. So sometimes you have to just nudge it, give it a little boost. Get to the middle, stop with needle down in that point. Make sure your other side is lined up. Continue sewing off. Trim these threads. We always have a mess of threads. I don't have needle down thread cutter. Press it open. There's the butterfly done. It's flying upside down. So it's like which way it is going to be for you guys to see. I have no idea. I should have checked that first. It could be all cockeyed. So if I keep it all the same direction. So now there's a thread, a thread. Of course, quilters always have threads everywhere. Flip it over. Press that one that I just pressed one way, press it the other way. We're going to remove the paper off of that seam. If other pieces come with it, don't worry, because all these papers can come off. But I'm just doing this one first so I can go press it again. And this time, because of the bulk, I'm going to dry press it, and then I'm going to give it a little bit of spritz of water. Open it back up. And I'm going to press it. I have it finger pressed over there, so I'm pressing on the right side of the material. The butterfly is facing up at me. Just a little spritz of water. Just a little bit of extra steam to set that seam. And it's like, so there's the butterfly. There's the one before. And now you can remove all your paper, but I'm just going to show you all the butterflies I've made. Here's Cricket in a yellow. Here is Cricket in a variety of colors. And then we have Pepper They look so different in whatever colors that we do. Here's Gidget. She will be, or is Pepper the next one? And then this is from the 5-inch blocks. These have been trimmed. And then I enlarged Pepper on my computer. I enlarged Pepper to as big as my printer would enlarge it, which wasn't very much. But look at the size difference. Just on my home computer, I enlarged it. It made a 7-inch instead of a 5-inch. Well, I hope this helps you. And I will do another tutorial on the next butterfly. But these are at liliella.com. They're called the Butterfly Charm Block. They are a free pattern to print out for your personal use. I have to make 20 butterflies. So I will have a YouTube for each one. Not the complete one, because it's like I will just, because this is 1 hour 11 minutes for half a butterfly, because I had half of each part of our one that was in the demonstration today. I had part A done, or C done. I made this part, this part, this part. So that's just half a butterfly, because I had this part done and one of these. So I had part of the pieces done. But I hope this helps you. And if you like it, put a thumbs up and leave a comment. I'm not going to be a live YouTuber. I'm just trying to be helpful. Thank you.